What's up, boys? Undead back again. Another video talking about specs and in the upcoming Shadowlands expansion. Playing on beta right now. Last night I did a bit of Frost DK, and this video is going to be short because this spec is the same. There is nothing fundamentally different about how any of this plays. You get a few new tools, but like essentially the class is unchanged. The new things we get are AMZ, which is across all 3 DK specs. This will be big for getting a raid spot more than anything. It's going to be good in dungeons too. But it doesn't change how you play the class at all. You just have AMZ now. We also got access to Sacrificial Pact, which is just another defensive ability. If you have a pet, an undead pet, you can sack it to heal yourself for 25% of your max health and do damage to everything around you. This works with control undead that you take out of dungeons. It also works with raised dead. We've gotten raised dead specifically for sack pack, it seems. This doesn't really have... This guy doesn't do anything. He sucks. He pretty much just exists to sacrifice. And see, the sacrifice does like okay damage, and this is AoE damage, so it's definitely worth hitting. Cool thing you could do with Sacrifice Pack or Sacrificial Pact and Control Undead, which I mentioned in the Blood video, is you can take undead mobs from some of the dungeons, namely in Necrotic Wake so far, we've found uses for this, and then you sacrifice them and you still get the count. So you remove a mob from existing, get count for it for free, and heal yourself and do a bunch of damage in AoE. So Sacrificial Pact is a good addition. Whether or not they want that to be intended, we don't really know. We'll see if they change it soon, but until then, it owns. And then finally, we got Lichborn across all 3 specs. Spoke about this in the in the Blood DK video. Immune to specific CCs, Charm, Fear, and Sleep, and you gain Leech for 10 seconds. So it's like a mini defensive. Not very good. Just kind of exists. And then as far as Frost specific stuff, we got Dragon. So that's cool. Dragon baseline is neat. Has an interaction with one of the legendaries I'll talk about in a bit. But that's it, really. There's the spec plays exactly the same. Talents are the same. Hypothermic Presence is a new talent. It is the only new talent. It is the only talent that is different at all from previous talents. And it basically is just a runic power steroid, which you would think would function nicely with Breath as like the primary playstyle, because Breath is what you'll be playing as Frost DK. But it doesn't really, like, it doesn't matter. I don't know, it doesn't... Gathering Storm's just better from everything that I've played through and messed with, and other DKs I've talked to as well. It's just the cooldown on it lines up odd. I mean, I guess it lines up with every pillar, so you are going to have it with every breath if you're using it with pillar. But in pillars outside of breath, the runic power cost reduction on Frost Strike is just kind of like, whatever. Like, this doesn't really matter. And primarily, you want to be spending runes on Remorseless and Rhyme procs and either Frost Scythes or a Blitz, depending on what you choose to play. So I don't know that we'll use this. And then we also got some new rune forges, which, again, Rune of Hysteria shows up as something that, like, maybe Frost will use, but it's the opportunity cost. So this basically, so your max runic power is increased by 20, and your attacks have a chance to increase your runic power generation by 20% for 8 seconds. But you have to give up 15% frost damage or 15% strength. So it's not like just a flat, like, wow, I have more runic power. You're giving up something for it, and so far I'm not convinced that Hysteria is the move. These other ones are defensive. This is a cheat death. This is a spell warding. You just take less magic damage. This has always been a thing. Unending Thirst is for questing. You get move speed and heal yourself when you kill an enemy. That gives you experience or honor, so that's chill. This will likely not work in dungeons. I actually haven't tested this in dungeons, so maybe it does, but like maybe it's a little vamp speed. And then Apocalypse, I've not done any testing with this, actually. It just does a bunch of random shit. puts a heal reduction, or increases damage taken, or reduces damage dealt, or slows the target and deals a dot. Maybe this will see some use like in like some PvP rock comps or something as unholy. I don't know. They all seem pretty underwhelming. I could see the value in the cheat death maybe for blood, but everything else here is kind of whatever. But what we did get is Covenants. So the move for Frost is going to be Venthyr 100% for PvE content. So Venthyr gives you Door of Shadows, which is a little boop-de-boop teleport. But more importantly, it gives us Swarming Mist. So what Swarming Mist does is puts this red, gross, powerful stuff around you for 8 seconds. And every target it hits, each time it ticks, it generates 3 runic power per target up to a max of 15. Has a minute cooldown, so it lines up perfectly with Breath. So this is just a runic power steroid inside your Breath that does big damage and gives you giga runic power. I don't see a world in which you play anything else for PvE Frost. Assuming that you are playing Breath, which is the move right now. I don't think we have the stats to make, like, we don't have any other synergies really with Obliteration or Ice Cap that exist right now to make them worth playing. Maybe there's a world where Frost Scythe gets uncapped and Obliteration with Frost Scythe becomes powerful, where you just hit that feedback loop of every Frost Scythe crits and then you either Frost Strike or Rhyme proc to hit it again. But with Frost Scythe being capped, this may be a dungeon-specific play. I played with both Frost Scythe and Avalanche. I didn't do much testing with Frozen Pulse because we have a lot of resources with Swarming Mist, so you don't always end up with low runes. So I played with Frost Scythe and Avalanche, and I actually felt like I preferred Avalanche, even though it's just like non-active, just because this isn't uncapped. So your Rhyme procs are not uncapped. Howling Blast hits all other enemies, infects them all with Frost Fever. Avalanche drops on all enemies nearby your target, dealing frost damage. So I got better results with Avalanche, even though the caveat of Frost Scythe is it applies Razor Ice. So you kind of have to tab through the pack to auto and obliterate other mobs to apply Razor Ice without having Frost Scythe, but it still seemed to do a little bit more damage with Avalanche. The other Covenant options are just not the move for PvE Frost. Night Fae is good for blood, obviously, but it affects D&D, which is a spell that we don't want to hit, that we did get back as Frost, but we don't care about at all. It's shadow damage. It doesn't have a point. It's not like you don't want to spend a rune on this. Because why would you spend a rune on this? If it scaled with our mastery, like if this was Shadow Frost damage, which is a suggestion some of the community has made, I could see it. Or if it had any interaction with Rhyme procs, right? Because this is, sure, it's a rune for damage, but it's a rune that wasn't spent on Obliterate, which means it can't proc Rhyme. And Rhyme being a large portion of our damage right now, our Howling Blast procs, it's just not worth. They would have to modify this quite a bit, and the damage that it deals is obviously the same. Well, I guess maybe that's not obvious. It's the same when you take Night Fae. It's just the bonus effect of getting the strength buff. I don't think the strength buff outweighs having to use that, and obviously not having Venthyr. The other two options, Abomination Limb, is just a utility option. Damage is not nearly enough to take. That's the grips a bazillion things over a short period of time when you activate it and does damage to them ability with Necrolords. And then finally, Bastion is just a single target ability that does damage. That does not do more damage than damage you're going to gain from Swarming Mist. And Swarming Mist does like almost as much damage just for hitting it as the Bastion ability. So unless there's a situation where you need the specific Covenant general traits, like the Bastion bleed removal, or CC immune from Necrolords, or the meld from Night Fae, you'll be playing Venthyr as Frost. I guess we'll talk about talents a little bit. It feels like Icy Talons is the play this early on. I was actually surprised because I don't particularly enjoy Icy Talons, and Cold Heart and Inexorable have been the go-to for so long. But it seems like it seems to be performing okay, just because there's a lack of stats early on. The haste feels really good inside breath, and breath keeps us perma. It feels like we have enough resources to keep this up in dungeons too, which feels really good. Play primarily with Runic Attenuation. These three will be a math thing that I just haven't done. So I just default to Runic until some math comes out to prove me wrong. If they're close, I usually just play Runic anyway. This row, obviously, utility. We talked about this before. This row, obviously, you choose what you want. Permafrost is usually the move. Defensively, Wraithwalk, I'm just playing because I want to be faster. I still think Gathering Storm, especially with the Legendary that I'm playing, I think Gathering Storm is the move. I talked about Hypothermic earlier. Glacial Advance. Glacial Advance seems good until you hit it, and then you try to hit it again, and it hasn't been 5.5 seconds, and you're just like, okay, I'm not taking that. And then Breath is the move right now. Breath does a lot of damage. And until there's like some sort of build that abuses Ice Cap, even with the buffs, I don't think that we'll be playing Ice Cap. In Obliteration I talked about earlier, where if they uncap Frost Scythe and you can find a way to do some Giga Dam with perma-crit Frost Scythes inside all your pillars, I don't think this will be the play. So then Legendaries. I spoke about Legendaries interacting with Gathering Storm. The Legendary that I've been playing is essentially, it's just the Frozen Tempest trait from BFA. This is reworked Frozen, well, not reworked, it is exactly Frozen Tempest, except instead of a flat damage, it's 15% damage increased to Remorseless Winter with a sick little typo, the BYY 15%. And the first time Remorseless hits 3 targets, you gain Rhyme. So this is just a nice way to open the pull, get Rhyme and your Frost Fever, which is meaningful damage on the target. And it just buffs your Remorseless Winter damage, which typically in a dungeon is your top damage. And typically Breath and Remorseless are your top 2 damages. Now the other Legendary I could see use from is, what slot is it, Bracers? Is the old Pants from Legion. So Frostworm's Fury has 50% reduced cooldown and freezes all enemies. So every minute and a half you can dragon, as opposed to every 3 minutes. So this ends up not lining up with every breath, but it's every 3rd pillar you have a dragon in. I think Remorseless is just better. There may be some specific pull patterns where you really need the burst every minute and a half to kill something, but usually if a pack lasts into your second Remorseless, you probably were going to do more damage with the 15% bonus Remorseless Winter damage anyway. So I think this will be the closest to being used, and I do think it'll be the only other one being used in dungeons. Otherwise, we have Coltira's. Where's Coltira's on hat? No, that's Remorseless again. Well, we have this, which is the other diseases are applied. This is not enough value for us. It's very valuable for blood because blood is just doing less damage overall. So getting 2 more damage sources that don't require any thought is just more damage. Here we go. So the old Coltira's belt from Legion and Obliterate deals 10% increased damage, has 15% chance to refund 2 runes. This will probably be powerful in raid. I haven't done any like pure single target testing with this versus Remorseless Winter. If we ever get to wear 2 legendaries, it'll certainly be this and Remorseless, I think. And that's it. Then we have access to the other defensive ones like Deathstrike refunding, Runic Power, the AMS double duration may see some use in some niche situations. Vamplet doesn't affect us. Death Grip, you can double Death Grip. That's all we have right now. And we have the 10% haste inside D&D as well, which you can use as Frost, but I think certainly not the move. So pretty much we're just slamming out Remorseless Winter, buffed by Gathering Storm, buffed by our Legendary, and getting big breath windows with Swarming Mist. So overall, I like this playstyle for Frost. I've always liked this playstyle for Frost. I think breath is really fun. While it can be punishing, there's certainly dungeon bosses that are punishing you for breath. We have a lot of other ways to generate resources now too, with the Empower Rune Weapon on top of Swarming Mist. Seems like our breaths are pretty sustainable. It's not like a difficult playstyle as long as you don't get a Giga mechanic during it. But that's kind of like part of the skill of breath that I've always enjoyed. And then our conduits are pretty unimpactful currently. None of them are like huge. Remorseless Winter flat damage just again feeds into Gathering Storm and the Legendary. Gain runic power when you kick. Frost Strike increases your strength by 1% for 6 seconds, stacks up to 5 times, so just flat 5% strength. And if you're keeping up, this will be outside breath. If you're keeping up Icy Talons, you're keeping this up too. And then Obliterate just increases damage your next Frost Strike, which is just a passive damage bonus. The other potency one that we would consider using is Powered Rune Weapon recharges 5% faster, and the haste amount is increased. The recharge speed doesn't matter because you're going to use this with breath. The increased haste could matter, just stacking a bunch of stats. Like maybe you get rid of this one because Frost Strike, you're obviously not going to be Frost Striking inside breath. So this has no value in that cooldown. It's outside that cooldown that this has value, along with this, right? You're not casting Frost Strikes inside breath. Where the extra haste in your breath, which aligns with your Empowered Rune Weapon, may be the move. I didn't do enough testing with this, and it's like hard to figure out what's affected by me continuing to learn the bosses or just like playing better and remembering I can hit Swarming Mist, and because there's no sims or APLs, it's hard to get like a definite answer to that. But overall, I think the spec is good. Tuning wise, it's good. It's not busted or anything. It's not extremely uncapped. Again, I think the cap needs to go. Frost Scythe needs to get uncapped, in my opinion. It's nice that our other 2 big damage sources are uncapped already, but I'll probably be repeating this in all of these videos as I go through all the specs, is that the capped versus uncapped just needs to end. I think it's unhealthy for the game. It's unhealthy for the dev team trying to figure out how to solve for it. And it's going to be unhealthy for players that main one spec and have always mained one spec for the past 15 years if their spec just ends up on the wrong side of the capping versus uncapping, you know what I mean? But that's it for now with Frosty Cave. They'll get some updates. They're still definitely missing conduits, and they're definitely missing legendaries, so we might get some other stuff coming. Well, maybe it's just 1 legendary. I'd have to go back and count them. But as usual, below in the description is links to the other Death Knight videos on this. So Blood is out so far. Unholy will be coming up soon, probably tomorrow. And then in there will also be links to update videos. If anything drastically changes throughout the course of beta, you can check those out. So if you like this video in particular, you can like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. You get notified when I put up more stuff. It's going to be as close to daily as possible until I get through all of the specs that aren't healers, because I'm not a simp. See ya.